every Italian's nightmare, I'll be adding the addition of cooked cockles and Laverbread to my pizza with ricotta sprinkled on top, torn pieces of mozzarella and fresh basil. Ladling on a homemade tomato sauce base using fresh tomatoes and not tin tomatoes for a change, like we all see on the internet. That's whether you can be bothered or not to incorporate in the extra labour or not. It's all to do with the love of cooking. First of all, weigh out all of your ingredients precisely. You can use any yeast you want. In particular, I find it's easier to use instant dried yeast. That's the Easy Bake one by Allison's, and it's much more convenient to find in the shops as well. So what you want to do is mix that in with cold water. Do not spend the palaver of using lukewarm water. It's not needed in this recipe. Place your flour into the mixing bowl and also the table salt and mix well until combined. Once you're happy with your ingredients collating well in that mixing bowl, you can place the dough ball onto the work surface or a tabletop, whatever you are using. So, kneading your dough helps build up gluten. So the gluten is what helps create your stretchy texture, allowing the dough to stretch without breaking. So that's why it's important to knead your dough thoroughly. So it's not necessary to knead your dough for long at this stage. So you're just kneading it until it becomes a nice smooth texture. Roughly after about 10 to 15 minutes of kneading your dough ball and you feel as though your hands are about to drop off, you've done it the right way. Place your dough into a well-oiled bowl and cover it with a damp tea towel or cloth. Leave it to brew for about an hour to an hour and a half. So as you can see, my dough has doubled in size. Sieve flour onto the tabletop and place your dough ball straight on top so it doesn't stick to the table like glue. Next, you can slap and fold your dough for a few minutes and as slowly as possible. There's no need to be speedy. So this technique is a method of building strength in high hydration doughs. So if your dough is very sticky and difficult to work with, this technique will help you to its advantage in building the gluten strength inside the dough. But if you are finding it very tricky, just add more flour to the tabletop. There's no problem whatsoever. Cut your dough balls in half using a bread cutter or the nearest knife you can find. Just be careful not to mark your tabletop, otherwise there might be consequences with your landlord. Shape them nicely in a ball form and brush olive oil inside 2 airtight containers. Place the dough balls inside the containers. Remember, they will double in size, that's why I'm keeping them separate. Brush more olive oil on top of the dough, so this helps the dough stay moist and not dry out because we are fermenting them overnight. So I fermented mine overnight for about 14 hours, but for best results 24 hours is a must. So place it in the fridge and just leave it overnight. Okay, so let's run through the ingredients for this Neapolitan style pizza. I have some fresh Laverbread from the local market, and to that we will mix in some cockles. These are cooked cockles, just a few, you don't need too many, I just like to buy in bulk. Okay, so I have actually made a fresh tomato and basil sauce here for the base of the pizza, and my favourite cheeses to put with Laverbread is ricotta and mozzarella. Just picture spinach and ricotta pizza, it's fairly the same. Some basil and some olive oil to drizzle on top. Now, for type 00 flour, it is a finely milled flour that is highly popular in Europe, particularly our Italian counterparts. Although since lockdowns and every other diversion that has happened in the past 2 years, it is quite difficult to feast your hands upon the type 00 flour bags, which is what I'm finding at the moment in the supermarkets. Could it be the lack of HGV drivers, or is it Brexit? The debate still continues amongst frustrated people online. So the best option for you would be to use the finer flour milled for pizza making, or pretty much plain flour will get the job done. It just won't have a significant stretch or elasticity in the dough, and the texture may be chewier too. So just pray it doesn't turn into a cardboard-like texture. And for the base of the pizza dough, I like to give it a slight dusting with semolina, just to enhance the flavour of the crust. I really do like using it, but that's just a personal preference. And of course, have your seasoning on standby. And next off, you need to preheat your grill and your hob to the highest heat settings possible. That is very important because it mimics the style of a conventional pizza oven. So you can do the same job in your domestic kitchen at home. Grab a small cereal bowl and add 2 spoonfuls of cooked cockles to the bowl and about 1.5 spoonfuls of the fresh Laverbread as well. So what you're doing here, you're just coating the ingredients together. It is simple as that, but please do not go overboard with the Laverbread ingredient because your pizza dough will end in disaster. It is wet in general, Laverbread, and it will make it go soggy and horrible. So what I'm doing here is based on a serving of 2 pizzas. So you just want a sprinkle of that on top of your pizza dough. Remember to remove any jewellery from your wrists. Perhaps you like to wear bracelets that may tangle in the way of the dough, or like in my case, if you like your rings, please remove them as it will tear the dough, which is not what we want to see or happen. I am certainly like a magpie when it comes to rings. For the homemade tomato and basil sauce to use for our base, I'm using fresh tomatoes, 10 medium ones to be precise, but the size does not particularly matter. Make crisscross shapes in your tomatoes and pour boiling hot water on top of them. And you want to have cold water at the ready. You can use ice cubes, but let's face it, not all of us have that many ice cubes to fit in our freezer. So once roughly about 10 minutes have passed for them seeping in the hot water, you can place them in the cold water and begin peeling your tomatoes. For a tomato, use a small knife and cut a small circle around the stem end. Next, drizzle some olive oil into a large saucepan and heat that up. Peel and dice an onion and a couple of garlic cloves, add it to the heated pan, cook until softened, and you want to cut your tomatoes into quarters so that it's just easier to add to the heated pan, and you want to cook all these down until the ingredients have softened. Add your seasoning, black pepper and salt and a dash of water to prevent the tomatoes from sticking to the base of the pan. Blend your ingredients. Once softened, you can use a hand blender or a food processor. Add a tablespoon of sugar to reduce the acidity in the sauce and about 2 tablespoons of tomato puree into the pan just to thicken the sauce and so that it becomes that nice red fluorescent colour. And lastly, add your basil leaves for some extra enhanced flavour. You can keep this sauce in the fridge for about 5 days. It will serve at least 6 based pizzas. Add a large medium frying pan to the preheated hob and allow that to heat through till it's piping hot. Sprinkle flour and semolina onto your work surface. Carefully grab the dough ball and place it onto the lightly floured work surface. Using your fingertips, politely press down onto the dough in an outer circular motion. So what you are doing is you are forming the crust layer here, and then come back into the centre part of the dough. Flip it over and do exactly the same thing. There are many techniques in stretching pizza dough that you will come across online. Lightly use the back of your hands to stretch the outer parts of the dough. Just imagine how a vinyl record spins, except you're stretching with the back parts of your left and right hands whilst rotating your dough. It does take a bit of practice, but once you get the gist of it, it becomes easier and like second nature for you. Next, lay the dough on top of your knuckles and lightly stretch the dough in rotation. If you're feeling clever, you can go ahead and throw the dough in the air, praying it will land back onto your knuckles to stretch it out once again. From the knuckles to the pan, lay your dough nice and finely into the piping hot frying pan, drizzle some olive oil on top, sit back, relax, and wait for those bubbles to start popping in your dough. So as you can see in the outer part, the crust is beginning to form. Now's your chance to ladle on the tomato and basil sauce. Place a couple of basil leaves on top. The reason why we put basil first is to prevent it from burning. So the cheese will act as a layer to facilitate the situation. 2. Scatter ricotta pieces all over your pizza base and tear up chunks of mozzarella. Next, grab your Cockles and Laverbread mixture and spoon over the mix in variable places. Now, you can use your fingertips, but it is a bit of a messy job and you need to be quick making this pizza because you do not want your base to burn. Remember, this pizza cooks in under a minute. Next off, season your toppings with black pepper and sea salt with a drizzle of olive oil and quickly place it under the grill. So you are just cooking this pizza until it goes a golden brown and crisp. Voila, a frying pan based pizza using the addition of Cockles, a Laverbread, sprinkled ricotta and torn up pieces of mozzarella and fresh basil using a homemade tomato sauce base. Please leave a like and a comment below, and thank you very much for watching today's video.